Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, before I start, I have a little confession to make regarding the past 3 vlogs that I made. Haven't you guys noticed a similarity in them? Well, for those who haven't, they are all fantasy or fairy tale related. And why? Well, because before COVID happened, my friends at Musical Theater Village were originally going to perform Into the Woods this month. And that show gave me the inspiration to look at several fantasy or fairy tale related movies. Anyway, for this episode, since I already talked about Jack and the Beanstalk with the 1974 musical anime film, along with the Mickey Mouse version in Fun and Fancy Free, Cinderella with Disney's 2015 live-action remake, and Rapunzel with the Tangle movies, I want to talk about a fairy tale that I haven't gotten around to yet. Little Red Riding Hood. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this knows very well about the story of Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, it's a godforsaken children's classic. The story follows a little girl who walks through the woods to deliver food to her sick grandmother, but then she is stalked by a big bad wolf who later swallows said grandmother and later attacks Little Red as soon as she arrives. Fortunately, a friendly woodcutter comes to the rescue with an axe, destroys the wolf, and frees Red and her grandmother. However, when it comes to film adaptations, there are several versions that I know about, like Tex Avery's animated short, Red Hot Riding Hood from 1943, The Big Bad Wolf from Disney's Silly Symphony series, which also features the 3 Little Pigs, Red Riding Hood from 2011, starring Amanda Seyfried, and a version from 1995 made by Good Times and Jetlag. But the Red Riding Hood movie that I'll be looking at today is a fairy tale spoof that many folks may either love or hate. But does it hold up these days, in my opinion? Well, let's take a look. Released on December 16th, 2005, the movie is Hoodwinked. Now, let's get started. In this version, many recipes have been stolen by the evil Goody Bandit, and many animals are running out of business. While the police are searching for the criminal, there is a disturbance at Granny Puckett's house involving Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf, Kirk the woodsman, and Granny. They are all arrested by the impatient Chief Grizzly. Luckily, Detective Nikki Flippers is in charge of the investigation, and each accused suspect gives his or her own version of the incident. Flippers uses the information to disclose the identity of the evil Goody Bandit. So, what do I think about the movie? Well, I never saw it in theaters, though I wanted to, but after seeing it on DVD at my best friend Steven's place, I thought this was a really funny movie. But, to further explain why I love the film, let's move on to Mustang notes. The movie was produced independently by Blue Yonder Films with Cambar Entertainment. It was directed and written by Corey Edwards, along with Todd Edwards and Tony Leach being in charge of the screenplay. And the film's producers were Katie Hooton, Maurice Cambar, David K. Lubgren, Sue Bao Montgomery, and Preston Stutzman. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Hoodwinked was among the earliest CGI animated movies to be completely independent funded. Working apart from a major studio allowed the filmmakers greater creative control, but also restrained them economically. Due to the film's small budget, its animation was produced in the Philippines with a less realistic design inspired by stop-motion films. The Weinstein Company did not sign on as the film's distributor until near the end of the production, and while the company had many roles recast, it otherwise made a few changes to the movie. Structurally, the film was inspired by non-linear crime dramas such as Rashomon and Pulp Fiction. As for the animation, well, in my eyes, the animation is not really that great, but on the positive side, it's not food fight bad. And also, the characters are designed pretty good in my opinion. Also, the movie's writing and jokes are very clever and hilarious. And it puts a nice new spin on these Fairytale characters, unlike the Fairytale characters that we see in Shrek. Plus, I find it interesting that most of the movie is an interrogation film, and it's cool hearing the story from each character's perspectives. Also, at the same time, since this movie says that it is the true story of Little Red Riding Hood, it kind of reminds me of a children's book that I read a long time ago during my elementary age. Also, while this movie is not technically a musical, there are a few song numbers, and to me, I think a lot of them are underrated. My favorites being Critters Have Feelings, sung during the end credits by Todd Edwards, and Be Prepared, sung by an old singing goat named Jeppeth, voiced by Benji Gaither. In my eyes, this song is pretty catchy, and I can't help singing along, especially during the part where Jeppeth takes Red on a minecart ride through the mountains. And I just love how fast-paced it goes when they have to outrun an avalanche. And now let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. Let's start with Little Red Riding Hood Puckett, voiced by Anne Hathaway. Best known from the Princess Diary films, along with Ella Enchanted, the Rio films, and The Cat Returns. To me, while Anne does a pretty good performance, I think Red is a likable character due to her kindness, cleverness, and wittiness. And I like that Red shows a lot of compassion. Also, I think her martial arts skills are pretty cool, and I find it interesting that her Red Hood has been passed down from her many relatives from preceding generations. Plus, I like that Red has big dreams of seeing faraway places outside her forest home. Next is Wolf W. Wolf, voiced by Patrick Warburton. Best known from The Emperor's New Groove, along with Disney's Soarin' rides, and Red Shoes and the Seven Dwarfs, which will be getting an American DVD release in about 2 weeks. In this version, Wolf is an undercover journalist who's been investigating the Goody Bandit, and his reason for following Red is due to suspicion. In my eyes, I like that Wolf is not a bad guy like in the original Fairytale. Plus, he can be fairly smart and resourceful when things go wrong, and I like that Wolf is a master of disguise. Next we have Wolf's photographer, Twitchy, voiced by director Corey Edwards. In my eyes, Twitchy would have to be my favorite character due to his hyperactive personality and fast talking. Also, even though he says that he doesn't drink coffee, he does get energetic and crazy after drinking. Next we come to Kirk Kirkendall, the Woodsman, voiced by Jim Belushi, who got to be in Little Shop of Horrors, The Pebble and the Penguin, Underdog, and Legends of Oz: Dorothy's Return. In this version, Kirk works as a schnitzel man who sometimes acts for commercials. However, after his schnitzel truck got robbed, Kirk gets a call back from Jimmy Lizard, who tells him to go out into the wild and pretend to be a woodsman to get his act up, until he got pushed through Granny's window by a huge tree. Anyway, in my opinion, Kirk is a friendly and warm-hearted guy who cares about others. However, he can sometimes be a little bit empty-headed and confused at times. Also, I like that in the end, his dream came true when he joins the Happy Yodelers. Next up is Granny Abigail Puckett, voiced by Glenn Close, whom I remember from Disney's live-action remake of 101 Dalmatians, along with Disney's Tarzan, Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. In this version, Granny is an extreme sportswoman who has her granddaughter Red working as her delivery girl. To me, Granny is a pretty cool character, but she can be a little bit overprotective when Red attempts to go up the mountain to visit her. Plus, I don't think it was very smart for Granny to keep secrets from Red. Our next character is Detective Nicky Flippers, voiced by the late David Ogden Stiers, whom you guys might know from films like Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, Lilo and Stitch, and Spirited Away. Nicky is another one of my favorite characters in this film, due to his patient, friendly, and debonair personality. Plus, I like the way he talks while interviewing each suspect. Also, at the end of the movie, I like that Nicky hired Red, Granny, Wolf, and Twitchy to work for him at the Happily Ever After Agency. Next we have Police Chief Ted Grizzly and Detective Billy Stork, voiced by rapper Exhibit and comedian Anthony Anderson. In my eyes, while these guys don't have a big role for the plot of the film, I think Grizzly is a stressed and grumpy bear who wants to get the investigation over with, while Stork is a talkative character who has some of the funniest lines ever. We also have the European ski team led by Dolph, voiced by Ty Edwards. To me, these guys are tough, cruel, mean, ruthless, and aggressive thugs, and they're a bunch of cheaters while attempting to kill Granny during the skiing competition. Later, it's revealed that they've been hired by the Goody Bandit. Another character to talk about is Boingo Bunny, voiced by Andy Dick, whom I mostly remember from The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, Inspector Gadget, and Happily Never After. In the beginning of the film, Boingo is seen as a friendly, innocent, sweet, compassionable, well-meaning, and honest rabbit who seems to be one of Red's, woodland friends. However, this was simply an act to hide his true identity as the Goody Bandit. Plus, since he was there when Kirk's truck got robbed, it began to become pretty obvious that this little rabbit was behind the recipe robberies. Not only that, but he was also the one who made Red fall out of the cable car. He gave Wolf and Twitchy directions to Granny's place, and he hired the evil European ski team. Anyway, Boingo's reason for being evil is because he was tired of answering to everybody and being the lowest, struggling, most hardworking animal in the forest. And he became desperate to prove himself to everybody through any means necessary, even if it meant stealing goodies. So, his evil plan is to build his own goodie shop and add a very secret ingredient to make every goodie super addicting. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, Hoodwinked is a pretty good movie. Sure, the animation isn't that great, but the characters are very memorable and likable. The writing is well done, and the humor is absolutely very clever. Also, I like that the film is an interrogation story, and that it takes a new spin on these fairy tale characters. So, I recommend you folks check this movie out if you'd like to see something fun to share with your children or your whole family. So, my rating for this movie will be an 85% out of 100. Well, that's all for now, but I'm not done yet. Be sure to join me next time where I share my thoughts on the Hoodwinked sequel, which happens to be one of the several bad films that I like. Mustang Power!